Hey there, how's it going? It is your muscle building coach, Lee Hayward. And in today's video, I'm going to answer a question that was submitted through the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group by Steve Mercer. And Steve wants to know the difference between pull-ups versus pull-downs and which is more effective from a muscle building point of view. So just going to read out Steve's question here because it's a good one and there's a lot to unpack here. And that's why I wanted to answer this question. So Lee, I'm trying to build up my back, and I know rows are essential, but I have some confusion surrounding vertical pulls. Most sources, including scientific EMG studies, say that pull-ups are better than pull-downs, and I know at least for me they seem more effective. Why is it then that all the pro bodybuilders use pull-downs mostly in their training videos? I know the guys are heavy, but I can't imagine they can't do pull-ups. I'm doing them with an added 80 pounds on some sets. Surely these guys can rep their body weight. I tried Googling it, but I couldn't get an answer. I figured since you competed at the high level you have and seeing your lats are like bat wings, you would be the guy to ask. It seems prudent to perform both exercises, and I just want to make sure that I'm putting the focus on the right things. All right, great question, and there's a lot to unpack here. First off, you're absolutely right in that from a muscle activation point of view, pull-ups on paper, on EMG studies, are better than pull-downs. Now, both exercises work the same major muscle groups. Both exercises are going to engage the lats and the biceps and all the supporting muscle groups. But from a muscle activation point of view, from a neuromuscular activation point of view, anytime you move your entire body through space, it activates a higher level of muscle activation. Your body is in a real three-dimensional environment, and it tends to have a greater stimulus. So when you move your body in a pull-up, there's more muscle activation versus a pull-down. When you do a squat versus a leg press, there's more muscle activation in the squat than there is in the leg press. Even if you're lifting heavier weight in the leg press, the squat is harder. Like if you do a set of squats to failure and then do a set of leg press to failure, I mean, both exercises are hard, don't get me wrong, but you'll feel a deeper level of fatigue from the squats because where you're moving your entire body through space, it just activates so much more muscle, right? You have to balance and stabilize everything when you're moving your entire body through space versus when you're just moving your limbs. So that's why you'll see exercises, body weight moves especially, are at the top of the list for muscle activation. But there's some real world application and practicality that we have to factor in there. One that you mentioned there in your question is the weight. Anytime you are bigger, meaning you have more weight to lift, it's going to make the body weight exercises harder. Even though these guys are strong and they got a lot of muscle mass and everything else, it's still a disadvantage when you have to lift more weight, right? The strength to weight ratio comes into play big time with body weight exercises. So generally speaking, smaller guys are going to be better at body weight exercises versus bigger guys. Even if the bigger guys are stronger overall, generally speaking, with few exceptions, the smaller guys are going to be better at body weight exercises. So like when you look at like male gymnasts, you're never going to see 250-pound male gymnasts, right? Like you see 250-pound bodybuilders. They're going to be small. They're probably going to be in the 150 to maybe 200-pound range max. That's for the real tall guys. But their weight is relatively light because that makes it more advantageous for them to do body weight exercises. The lighter you are, the easier it is to move your body. And to really draw this point home, I want to show you a video of Brian Shaw. This was posted a few years ago on his YouTube channel. In this video, Brian is comparing himself to a Navy SEAL, and they're going through a bunch of different exercises. And for a lot of the exercises, Brian was stronger than the Navy SEAL. But when it came to the bodyweight stuff, i.e. the pull-ups, the Navy SEAL just kicked his ass. And I have a lot of respect for Brian for being vulnerable and putting himself out there like this, because most guys, if they're not good at something, they don't want to highlight they're not good at it. Especially someone of Brian's caliber, a world's strongest man competitor. I mean, he has won the world's strongest man, one of the biggest, strongest, most muscular men in the world. Like in this video, he's, I think, 440 pounds. And just a beast of a man, right? I've met Brian at the Arnold Classic Expo a few years back, and again, to see him in person, it's just mind-blowing how big he is. I remember at the time, I think I was around 220 pounds, and Brian is 400 plus pounds, and he made me look like a child in comparison, right? He's just absolutely massive. And there's a lot of strength, a lot of power. Again, one of the strongest men in the world. But when it came to pull-ups, quite frankly, he sucked. From an athletic point of view, he sucked. And let me just show the video here, right? This is up on Brian's channel, so you can go check this out for yourself. I'll post the link down in the description below. All right, so he's setting up for the pull-ups. And right off the bat, you can see he's struggling, right? They're not clean pull-ups, right? Like, he's not going all the way up. He's struggling, right? 400 pounds, that's brutal. I think he gets 5 or 6 reps to failure. Right? So, again, kudos to him for doing this and putting himself on the line. But it just goes to show, even though he's one of the strongest men in the world, when it comes to bodyweight exercises, that mass, that size is a disadvantage, right? That's an anchor holding him down. Versus a lighter guy who's not as strong would probably be able to bang out multiple pull-ups with ease in comparison. So you got to factor that in there. So when you're seeing the top pros who have a lot of size, a lot of mass, they're not as good with the bodyweight exercises. So that's probably why they're going to do the pull down versus the pull up, especially in a training video, because they don't want to make themselves look bad. The idea of the training video is to show them at their best. So in their real world training that they do off camera, they probably incorporate pull-ups into their workouts because it is an effective exercise. But when they're trying to show their best, they're probably not going to do that because they may have to use a bit of momentum, the range of motion might not be there. And instead of getting everyone critiquing them and criticizing them, oh, you suck at pull-ups, they'd rather do a pull down and really be in control of the weight, get a good contraction, highlight all that muscularity throughout their back. Because when you're doing a pull down with moderate weight, you can really contract and squeeze and hold and flex the muscles and really, show your back at its best. Whereas when you're struggling to do a pull-up, it may not look as pretty or as aesthetically impressive on video, right? So you got to factor that in. Like, video it's an illusion, right? People are there to show their highlights and hide their weaknesses, right? That's what it's all about. So you're not always going to see guys in training videos doing exercises that they may do in training because they want to show stuff that looks good on video. So that's a big thing to factor in there as well. Another element that we need to consider, and this applies especially at the highest level of all sports, whether it's bodybuilding or whatever, is past injuries. Because in order for someone to get to the high level, they've had to push their body, and chances are they've got the injuries to show for it, right? So that applies to me, because in the past, I used to love doing pull-ups. It was one of my favorite exercises. I did them with every back workout, and it really helped to build my back. So I did a lot of pull-ups. But a few years back, I had a serious injury. I'm just going to show that for you right here. On the video, you can see I had a tear right in my lat tricep tie-in area, all that muscle area right there and under the armpit. Major tear. And since I had that injury, I have not been the same since. Like, that has literally haunted me for life. Like, haven't been able to lift as heavy. I haven't been able to do pull-ups the same. I haven't been able to deadlift or do rows the same. Like, that injury has really caused a major setback in my training. And right here, you can even see, like, afterwards, when I got back into competing in bodybuilding, there was a gap in my armpit, right? Like, you look on one side, the lat is full, right? And this side here, you can see that the lat, there's actually a gap there. And that gap is where the muscles and the tendons had torn, and it never fully recovered. And even to this day, that still haunts me. Like, I cannot perform exercises like I did prior to that injury. So you have to factor that in there as well. When you're looking at top-level pros, most of them have had some sort of injury, whether it's just minor stuff like aches and pains and pulls and strains and tendonitis and whatever. That's going to limit what they can do. So they have to adjust their workouts and adjust their exercise selection, not necessarily on what's the most effective from a scientific standpoint in terms of this exercise is more on an EMG study stimulates muscle growth better than this one. It's like, what can I actually do without aggravating my injuries that I can do comfortably and that's still going to allow me to train consistently and not injure myself and cause more harm than good. So it's that balancing act. It's like, yeah, I want to maximize progress, but also I want to minimize injury and stay in the game long term. So a lot of times people will adjust their exercise selection based on what they can do at this stage of the game, not just based on, hey, Joe Blow's scientific research shows this exercise is more effective than the next one. It's what can I really do? And that applies in so many areas, right? Like you'll see that, for example, squats, one of the best exercises you can do. But if you've got back problems, knee problems, hip problems, or something that prevents you from squatting, that's probably not the best exercise for you. So you may have to do other exercise variations. And that's where you'll see some guys doing leg presses or hack squats or various different leg machines because it still allows them to work the muscles without aggravating past injuries. So that's another big element that we got to factor in there as well. And this is why you can't just take things at face value. So when you see someone doing a particular exercise, like even if they're a high-level athlete, there's probably a reason they're doing it that is beyond this is the most effective exercise for muscle stimulation or whatever. It could be this is the most effective exercise for my body type based on my current situation, based on my size, my past injuries, my mobility, and all that kind of stuff has to be factored in there as well. So the take-home message is focus on what works for you right now. That's the take-home message. So in Steve's case, back in his question, he said, where was it? He says, I know at least for me, they are more effective. So that is your message right there. If you like doing pull-ups, you can do them with good form, you find they work well and they're effective, by all means do pull-ups, right? There's nothing wrong with it. Does that mean you can't incorporate pull-downs? Of course you can. You can still incorporate pull-downs, but if you like doing pull-ups and they work for you, then that could be your primary vertical pulling exercise. Your primary overhead pulling movement could be the pull-up. And I know in Steve's case, even though he's in amazing shape, his body weight is relatively low. Like he's under 200 pounds. So from a bodybuilding point of view, if you're less than 200 pounds, you're a lightweight, right? So the strength to weight ratio is in his favor for doing body weight exercises like pull-ups and dips and push-ups and all that kind of stuff because he has that lighter body weight. And that will make these exercises more effective. Whereas if you're getting people who are over 200 pounds, and in some cases over 300 pounds or whatever, that weight to ratio is not in their favor. So they're probably going to incorporate more exercises where they're moving their limbs and not moving their entire body. So again, I wanted to explain this and give you a real world context because most people just throw out the scientific research and say, oh, according to the EMG study, pull-ups are better than pull-downs. Everybody should be doing pull-ups. And it's not as cut and dried as that. You have to factor in the real world side of things. And that's why you'll probably see some bodybuilders doing pull-downs versus pull-ups, not because they're more effective, it's because it's a better exercise for them based on their current situation, based on their body type and past injuries and whatever else they got to work around. So you got to factor in the real world element here. So hopefully you found this video insightful, and if you do have any other questions, comments, or feedback, or if there's any other exercises you'd like me to break down into more detail, please let me know down in the comment section below. And if you haven't already done so, head on over and join us on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. We've got an online community there. There's over 1,000 members, and we have some nice little discussions where we can kind of go deep and discuss, your training situation, answer questions, and help provide support and encouragement to help you reach your fitness and fat loss goals. So feel free to join us over there. And again, I'll post a link to our group down in the description below so you can request and join the group. And in the meantime, make sure to stay tuned to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel, because I'll have more videos coming your way very soon. Have yourself a great day, and I look forward to talking to you in my next video. Take care. Over and out.